Good afternoon and welcome to Matador News. I'm Jared Nealeigh.
And I'm Rabhi. Freedom Signs, a musical performance with narration celebrating our First Amendment rights, is coming to CSUN. Matador News reporter David Lujan is live in the sundial.
So, we are here with Professor Stephanie Bluestein, who is going to sit and talk to us about Freedom Sings. So please, enlighten me. Tell me, what is this? Why is everyone talking about it?
It is an awesome celebration of the First Amendment through live music. So we've got 4 performers who are coming out from Nashville today. They're arriving tonight and they'll be here tomorrow to perform songs that have been banned from the radio, censored, investigated by the government, or they've sparked social change.
Wow. Do you know how this got started?
Well, back in August, I was at a large journalism education conference in Washington, D.C., and I stumbled upon this presentation in a huge ballroom and didn't really know what I was getting into, but sat down, started listening. I love music, and I was blown away. I was literally, this is going to sound corny, I was in tears by the end of the performance. I was so moved. I had learned so much, and I vowed right then and there, I'm bringing this to CSUN. And I started working on it in September, and here it is in April, and it's going to be here tomorrow.
Wow. And how long have they been doing it for? Do you know?
About 10 years.
10
something
years.
like that. They do a few performances at various college campuses throughout the country or at conferences.
Wow. So we're lucky. We're lucky to have them here.
We are very lucky. They've never been to Cal State Northridge. And we are very, very lucky to see this.
So when will this be playing?
At 11 a.m. tomorrow, Thursday, April 24th, in Plaza Del Sol in the USU. And at this moment, there are 5 tickets left at the AS ticket office. Although...
Well, I got my ticket.
And there's another one, yes. So,
well, now you guys know, tomorrow... Thank you so much for stopping by.
Good, thank you. And can I just add that these are professional musicians from Nashville. They are studio musicians, and they do this on the side. One particular performer, Des Dickerson, used to play with Prince and the Revolution. So we have some really top-notch performers.
Cool. Thank you for stopping by.
Good, thank you.
President Obama is in Japan visiting with numerous Asian political leaders. This is the first visit by an American president in almost 2 decades, as the United States is working on better relationships with Asian countries. One of the main issues is an emphasis on diplomatic and economic ties with Pacific nations to counterbalance China's influence in the region. President Obama also brought the new U.S. ambassador to Japan, Caroline Kennedy. The week-long tour will also take the president to South Korea, Malaysia, and the Philippines.
Rival Palestinian groups Fatah and Hamas are forming a national consensus government, bringing an end to 7 years of operation under separate administrations. At a news conference, leaders of both groups said the division was taking a toll on Palestinian groups.
The death toll continues to rise after South Korean ferry Sewol sunk en route to Jeju Island last week. Divers say they discovered there are no air pockets, which means rescue efforts could switch to recovery missions. Divers recovered 157 bodies after a fruitless search of survivors in the ferry's cafeteria. Ferry crew members are being criticized for their conduct. A South Korean Coast Guard said the first emergency call came from a boy on board 3 minutes before the crew made their call. Grief over the incident spread all over the Korean peninsula and even reached its nemesis North Korea, which sent its condolences.
The Supreme Court has reached a compromise today, ruling anyone who becomes involved in the vending of child pornography must pay a portion for the victim's suffering. The current law for child pornography distributors states the victim is entitled to full compensation, but it does not indicate who is to pay which portion. Today's 5-4 court decision stems from a recent child pornography case in which a child was raped at the ages of 9 and 8. Her lawyers argue the videos, which went viral, will affect her for the rest of her life, and she deserves compensation. Justice Anthony Kennedy says everyone involved should pay something. No one payment should be extreme, but payments shouldn't be a token.
In another decision, the court is upholding a Michigan law banning the use of racial criteria in college admissions. The ruling bars publicly funded colleges from granting preferential treatment to any individual on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin. Michigan joins Florida and California as states where residents have voted to forbid affirmative action in higher education. The decision was the latest in a legal and political battle over whether state colleges can use race and gender as a factor in choosing what students to submit.
The teen who traveled from California to Hawaii in the wheel well of a plane may have been trying to reach Africa to reunite with his mother. The 16-year-old was living with his father and stepmother in Santa Clara and attending high school. Officials say that he most likely hopped on any plane hoping he'd eventually land in Africa. Despite the below-zero temperatures and lack of oxygen, the teen managed to survive the 5.5-hour flight. The teen has been taken into Child Protective Services and will not be charged with a crime.
The Los Angeles County is one of the most polluted areas in the state, according to the California Environmental Protection Agency. Matador News reporter Alejandra Vasquez has more on the story.
The Protection Agency has released a list and a map of the cities affected by air pollution. The areas most affected are the San Joaquin Valley and the Inland Empire. Environmental and occupational health professor Peter Bellin says pollution is affecting low-income communities more than anyone else.
Well, low-income communities often would be in areas where housing is less expensive, and housing is less expensive in areas that are less desirable. So if you're near a freeway, typically, if you're far from the beach. So if you look at the map, you can see that the air pollution levels are lower near the beach, which makes sense because you typically have the ocean air pushing inland, right? And that also is what builds up pollution nearer mountains and hills, because the air is pushing up against, has more time to stew, if you will. Now also, people probably don't want to live near industrial facilities. So that means housing is less expensive near industrial facilities. So you keep on thinking about, well, what is desirable, where do people live? It has to do with rents can be afforded. And where rents are lower are also areas where sources of pollution are greater. So if you look at the map that was in the newspaper today, where they break down pollution levels by district, if you look at more than just air pollution, but you also focus on other aspects, drinking water, exposure to hazardous waste, industrial operations, that it tends to be localized, not evenly distributed. So how much pollution you have will depend in part on where you live.
Experts say even though the air is cleaner than it was, Californians should continue to advocate for better air quality and better industry regulations. Now back to you.
And now let's go to Gloria Star for the latest in business news.
Lawyers pressing cases against General Motors say the company knew about the ignition defects before filing for bankruptcy in 2009. They say General Motors hid the defect during the bankruptcy and subsequent government bailout. General Motors has filed papers seeking to protect itself from lawsuits related to the ignition switch recall. Plaintiff lawyers say General Motors should not be able to use its bankruptcy to avoid liability. The countdown continues for news on Apple's first quarterly financial reports. The reports are expected to be released by 2 o'clock today. The Supreme Court is about to end a battle between the country's biggest broadcasters and Aerial. Aerial scoops up freely available signals from TV stations using tiny antennas, and then it streams the signals to the phones and tablets of paying subscribers. The TV broadcast industry says Aerial is stealing content and reselling it. The court's ruling, when it comes, could shut down Aerial, or it could allow it to continue providing subscribers with a low-cost way to watch local broadcast channels without paying for cable. And now let's go to Katie Fauskee with the latest in health news.
College students around this time of year are spending more time in the library studying for finals instead of partying. ADHD medications are becoming popular for overworked and overscheduled students who have not been diagnosed with ADHD. Some researchers estimate about 30% of students using stimulants non-medically. Adderall, Ritalin, and Vyvanse are some of the medications commonly used. Many CSUN students say people abuse the drug Adderall.
but I think it's bad if it gets abused. And I think sometimes, especially in our culture, it's like, not that it's an excuse, but just that it's like, oh, I can stay up later, and I'll take something.
Being that I suffer from ADD, I do get symptoms of constant agitation whenever I'm not on the drug. So what the drug does, it helps me concentrate and calm down and focus on everyday tasks.
Well, I do know that people like Adderall, and they're like, oh my god, let me try it because Limitless, that movie was amazing. Like, everybody's trying to be amazing over here, but really, it's highly addictive, and they shouldn't cheat, they should study.
Finals begin in 3 weeks, and doctors recommend a healthy diet, exercise, and enough sleep. And now, Gloria has the latest in entertainment news.
Oscar winner Lupita Nyong'o is now People magazine's most beautiful woman. The 31-year-old actress told the magazine this is something she never dreamed of. It's been a big year for Nyong'o, who won the Oscar for Best Actress in a supporting role for the movie 12 Years a Slave. This issue's Most Beautiful People list also includes actress Amber Heard, singer Pink, and model and former pro wrestler Stacy Keibler. Chris Brown's assault trial is on hold until the appeal of his bodyguard's conviction is completed. The trial's delay came after prosecutors would not grant immunity to Brown's bodyguard so he could testify without jeopardizing his own case. On Monday, the bodyguard was found guilty of assaulting a man on a Washington sidewalk. Brown's attorney says the treatment he is getting is over the top.
To have him in custody on this misdemeanor that everybody saw the bodyguard's trial on, which was nothing more than a bloody nose. And now you've got the bodyguard who was convicted and who readily admitted he was the one who did the punching. So I think all of this is much ado about nothing.
Prosecutors cited the bodyguard's refusal to talk about his testimony as a reason to deny immunity. Knock knock, who's there? Too much of a good thing. Kortney Foust has more on who came up with these terms over 400 years ago.
Happy birthday to William Shakespeare. Today marks his 450th birthday. Part-time CSUN professor Mary Shannon says Shakespeare's work has stood the test of time.
Because he's still relevant. He is still, the kinds of things that he's talking about, everyone still feels. The kinds of problems that his characters encounter are still the problems that people encounter now.
Shakespeare has had a big influence on the English language as well. People who are not Shakespeare experts speak his language without even knowing it. Have you ever been in a pickle or gone on a wild goose chase? These are just some of the terms that continue to live on today. Back to you in the newsroom.
And now let's go to Katie with the latest in sports.
Albert Pujols joins Major League Baseball's elite 500 home run club. Last night, the Los Angeles first baseman became the first major leaguer to hit his 499th and 500th homers in the same game. The ball he hit was marked with a P to signify the authenticity of the 500th home run.
That is not the right pitch. Throw over. No, it's a high pitch.
Pujols is the 26th baseball player to join the club.
For Albert Pujols.
Today is the 100th anniversary of the first game ever played at Wrigley Field. The Cubs will wear throwback Chicago Federal uniforms against the Diamondbacks. The team wants the match to look exactly as 100 years ago. The ballpark was not known as Wrigley Field until 1927. The game is the first of the 9 historic promotions the Cubs will be holding this season. The Los Angeles Kings are heading into Game 4 against the San Jose Sharks. Last night was the first of the playoff games played in LA this series after the first 2 games were in San Jose. The Kings suffered a 4-3 loss in overtime, making the series Sharks 3, Kings 0. The Kings will return to Staples Center tomorrow in hopes of avoiding elimination. And now, back to you, Jared and Ala.
That's all for today. Thank you for watching Matador News. I'm Jared Nealeigh.
And I'm Rabhi. Have a great day.